Hello students! Good day to each and everyone. Welcome to the online modality of Esperanza National High School. I hope everybody is doing very well. And don't forget to follow the minimum health standards set by the Department of Health or DOH in order to fight for this COVID-19 pandemic, and very soon we will be back in the normal classroom environment. Number 1, wearing of face mask. Number 2, wearing of a shield is specifically if you are going to travel from one place to another to avoid physical contact with different people coming from various places. Number 3, social distancing. And number 4, frequent washing of our hands. By the way, I am Samsudin and Abdullah, your online teacher in Practical Research 2 or Quantitative Research.
My subject to you is Practical Research 2, and its descriptive title is Quantitative Research. And actually, I have been teaching Practical Research 2 or Quantitative Research since the first year implementation of the senior high school curriculum, and that was firstly implemented in 2016. Before we are going to proceed with the discussion of the main topics in this first video presentation, in this particular new normal class, specifically the first day of the new normal class, October 5, 2020, I am going to present to you the learning objectives of this video presentation. At the end of this video presentation, the students are expected to: Number 1, demonstrate their understanding about the overview of the research subjects offered in the senior high school curriculum. Second, explain the importance of inquiry, investigation, and immersion in conducting a research. You will also determine the difference between inquiry, investigation, and that of the research in this particular first video presentation. Third, identify the characteristics of a quantitative research. And fourth, to explain the 7 steps in conducting a research. I hope after this first video presentation, you are able to achieve all of these 4 different learning objectives in this particular video presentation. This time, we are going to talk about the overview of the senior high school research subjects. The first research subject that was offered to you in your grade 11, and this is particularly offered in the second semester, is the Practical Research 1. Practical Research 1 is dealing with qualitative research. The second research subject offered to all the strands or all the tracks of the senior high school curriculum is Practical Research 2, and this is dealing with quantitative research, and this is our subject this first semester of the new normal class for the school year 2020-2021. And the third research subject, and this is offered to all the senior high school students, is the inquiries, investigations, and immersion, and this is the culminating research subject. So when we say culminating research subject, there is a formal program in which the students will be going to defend their research outputs before the panelists or before the adjudicators, and these adjudicators will be invited from different prestigious schools in order to judge your research output, and they will be going to select the best research paper as well as the best research presentation, and special awards will be given to the best speaker. You will not be able to have your final grade in inquiries, investigations, and immersion unless you can present your research output in group. And I hope in the second semester, we will be back in the normal conduct of our class so that you can experience the final defense, and it is a very good experience for you so that if you will be in the college level, conducting of research will not be very new to you. And for your inquiries, investigations, and immersion, you can select which of the two research proposals you are going to proceed with, either from practical research one, and that is qualitative research, because I know that you have already produced your first three chapters of your qualitative research, because that was the final requirement for you to have your final grade in practical research 1. And in our subject, practical research 2, you are going to submit your first three chapters of your research in quantitative research. And if you want to continue or proceed with the data gathering activities of your research proposal in practical research 2, that will be very appreciated in inquiries, investigations, and immersion. And you have also an option to have the mixed method of practical research 1 and that of the practical research 2, or the qualitative and the quantitative mixed methods of research. All of the students in the senior high school curriculum are having these three specific research subjects. Now, for the students from the STEM curriculum, there is additional subject for them, and this is the research capstone. You do not have a research capstone if you are in the UMS, ABM, TVL, Arts and Design, because research capstone is just only exclusively offered for the students in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics curriculum. And this is different from the inquiries, investigations, and immersion, because in the research capstone, actual conduct of science investigatory project, or SIP, and this is for the STEM students, will be conducted. And this is purely science topics being conducted by the STEM students, because in your inquiries, investigations, and immersion, researches talking about social sciences such as leadership, teachers' commitment, student absenteeism, bullying, etc., will be talking about social sciences, and they are talking about different dimensions or aspects of social sciences. And that is all about the inquiries, investigations, and immersion. And for the research capstone, usually this will be experimental research design. And for inquiries, investigations, and immersion, this will be either descriptive or correlational, because this is talking about social science research. And for research capstone, this is talking about purely science research, and this is offered only for the STEM students. Now, if we are going to go back to the true nature of the qualitative research, this is making cuento without cuenta of a certain event or phenomenon. What is the meaning of this? Now, if you are conducting qualitative research, this is more on cuento. You are making cuento out of a certain event. In making cuento, the prerequisite here is the English language, because if you are not expert in the English language, you will not be able to make a very good cuento of a certain event or phenomenon. We are using the English language because we are following the international standards, in which the international language is English. And this is without cuenta. What is the meaning of this? You will not be using scientific calculator, or you will not be using Microsoft Excel in order to compute for your data, because your data that will be presented are purely qualitative data. It means that the presentation of the data are purely done in words. But it doesn't mean that it is qualitative research that there is no number being used in the presentation of data. There is still a number, but this number is just only descriptive. It is not taken from the survey questionnaire. And that is all about qualitative research, making kwento without kwenta, it means that there is no statistical treatment. You will not be using scientific calculator, you will not be tabulating your data because your data will be discussed in narrative form. Talking about the true nature of the quantitative research, this is doing kwenta. What is the meaning of kwenta? Calculation. You are going to do the calculation of the data that you have. And after the calculation or the computation or the statistical treatment of your data, you are going to explain what is the kwento behind this kwenta. That is why if you are conducting quantitative research, you are doing the kwenta as well as the kwento. Unlike with the qualitative research, you are not doing the kwenta, and this is purely making kwento of a certain phenomenon or event. Because you cannot understand the data being presented in numbers or quantitative presentation of data unless there is kwento behind that numbers. That is why quantitative research is more complex compared with that of the qualitative research, according to many researchers. But there are some researchers who are considering that qualitative research is more complex because if you are not really good in making kwento of certain event, you cannot do a qualitative research. While in quantitative research, after having the kwenta or the calculation of your data or tabulation of your data, statistical treatment, you are going to analyze your data using words or phrases or compositions in order to explain very well what is the meaning of that computed data that you have in your quantitative research. Now, if we are talking about the true nature of research, it is equal to inquiry plus investigation plus immersion. That is why you have a separate subject in which the descriptive title is inquiries, investigations, and immersion, so that you will be doing the so-called process of asking questions, the investigation, and we have the immersion. So that is the equation of research. Research is equal to inquiry plus investigation plus immersion. And we are going to discuss the difference between inquiry, investigation, and immersion, and what are the differences compared with the research. It means that the word inquiry, investigation, and immersion are all under the umbrella of the word research. Now, our subject for this first semester of this new normal school year, 2020-2021, is quantitative research. If we are going to summarize the true nature of quantitative research, this is cuenta plus cuento. Cuenta is talking about statistics. And cuento is talking about language. It means that if you do not know how to compute your data, statistically treat your data, and after statistical treatment, you do not know how to make cuento of your data, you cannot do a quantitative research. That is why in our subject, quantitative research, you will be acquainted of the research process or the research steps in doing the practical research too or the quantitative research. This is statistics plus language. That is quantitative research. Statistics is cuenta. You are doing the calculation. You will be using the Microsoft Excel as well as the statistical package for social sciences or SPSS. And afterwards, you are going to have the explanation of that particular quantitative data that you have. That is the true nature of quantitative research. What is now an inquiry? How does it differ from investigation? What is the importance of inquiry? How important is investigation in conducting research? Inquiry is an act of asking questions. If you are going to do an ordinary asking of questions, for example, what is your name? Who is your best friend? All of these are inquiries. This means that if you are going to ask questions and these questions need instant answers, you are doing the so-called inquiry. It is a process that has the aim of augmenting knowledge. You are asking questions because you want to know about that specific event or phenomenon, and that is to resolve doubt or solving problem. You cannot solve a problem without asking questions about the details of that problem. That is why if you are conducting a research, you are undergoing the ordinary asking of questions, and that is inquiry. In dictionary, inquiry is synonymous with the word investigation. But investigation has a deeper meaning if we are talking about the research process, because investigation is a systematic examination. If you are doing the inquiry, you do not undergo with the examination, because when we say examination, there is a tool, there is an instrument being employed in doing the examination of a certain event or phenomenon. Now, what is the meaning of phenomenon? Phenomenon is anything that happens in a certain community that has a great influence on the livelihood of the people. Investigation is very closely related to the word research. Take note, when we say investigation and inquiry, these are all under the umbrella of research. What makes research different from that of the investigation is that the word research undergoes immersion. What is now the meaning of immersion? Immersion is a process whereby a researcher immerses. When we say immerses, you are going to deeply involve yourself in the data gathering activities, and the data that you have gathered are carefully examined or read by you in detail. Combining the idea of inquiry, investigation, and that of the immersion, the concept of research comes in. That is why from the previous slide, research is equal to inquiry plus investigation plus immersion. Now, immersion is being evident in the data gathering activities because you as researcher are going to mingle with your respondents. You are the one to distribute your questionnaire. You are the one to gather data. That is why you are going to involve yourselves in data gathering activities. That is the meaning of immersion. This time, we are going to talk about research. What is now a research? Research is a systematic and refined technique of thinking employing specialized tools. What is the meaning of systematic? There is a scientific steps being undergone in order to refine idea or thinking, in order to recycle a certain old idea or old principle. That is why refine means you are going to make the old idea better and relatable to the present scenario of the modern world. And that is why research is using specialized tools. And what are these specialized tools? Specialized tools for the qualitative research, and instruments for quantitative research. What are your tools in data gathering activities for the qualitative research? You have the interview, you have the focus group discussion, you have the participatory rapid appraisal, you have the video recorder, you have the camera. All of these are tools in data gathering activities if you are doing the particular immersion of the research in data gathering activities. And for the quantitative research, you are using the specialized instrument. And what are these specialized instruments? You are having the survey questionnaires, checklists, being validated by the experts. You have also the instruments being utilized for the experimental research. These are the instruments being used in conducting a research. And there is a systematic procedures or scientific procedures in order to obtain a more adequate solution to a certain problem. Now, we are conducting a research not just for personal consumption, not just for personal career move or professional development, but you want to resolve a certain problem. You want to look for a solution of that particular problem. If a certain idea is already obsolete and it is no longer applicable for this modern world or particularly this new normal life, you are going to do a certain research. Now, if you are conducting a research, you start with a problem. If you are curious about a certain event or phenomenon, you can start doing a research because your curiosity will bring a very good problem or potential problem for your research. And after identifying your problem, you are going to proceed with the collection of data. You are going to look for the details of this particular problem in order to have a better analysis of this data that you have in looking for the solution of this problem. And in the analysis of data, you are just only considering the incontrovertible facts or evidences in order to have the very good or reaching a very good decisions. And these decisions that you have reached based from the findings of your research will be again a potential problem for a new research. That is why research starts with a problem and ends with a problem. But before you can end your research with a new problem, you are going to undergo the decisions based on the actual observations. That is why if you are doing the research, you are going to have the immersion so that you can experience the real data gathering activities, because if you experience something, you will never forget the activities that you have undergone. That is why if you are conducting your research, you are going to involve yourselves in the data gathering activities, from identifying the problem, going to the suggesting a new problem for the future researchers. You are going to do the actual observations so that if you experience that activities personally, you will not forget everything. And you must be critical in analyzing the data. When we say critical, you are going to just only consider those facts and evidences which are valid or which are being validated by several people. That is why do not manipulate your data, because if you are going to manipulate your data, you are not a critical researcher so that you can reach a very good decisions. And research ends with a problem. That is all about research. Now, this time, we are going to talk about the characteristics of a quantitative research. Number one, empirical. What is the meaning of this? Research is based on direct experience or observation by the researcher. The collection of data relies on practical experience. The meaning of this one is that research is learning by doing. If you do not experience conducting a research, you cannot say that you are a good researcher. You cannot say that you are very expert in research. Although you memorize the basic concepts about research, but you do not experience conducting a research, you cannot be a good researcher. That is why research is learning by doing, and that is empirical. Therefore, if you have your requirement in research, do not let somebody to do your research, because if you let somebody to do your research, you have a very good grade, but you lack experiences on conducting a research, and if you will be asked about the data gathering activities or procedures that you have, what are the procedures in conducting a research, you cannot answer it because you do not experience the actual observation, the actual conduct of the research, the actual data gathering activities. That is why you are going to force yourselves in conducting a research, because research is a very good training for you to have the very good writing skills, because in conducting a research, you do not just only critically analyze the data, you do not just only validate the data before presenting it, but you are taught how to be a critical writer, because the major tool in doing a research is the language. And aside from the language, you must be also be good in statistical treatment, because we are having this particular quantitative research. Or in other words, empirical means research is learning by doing. Do not hire somebody to do your research, because if you're going to do that, you will not learn. For instance, you invited the very good speakers in research, and these speakers are coming from a very prestigious university. You really understood the meaning of research, the research process, everything about research is very familiar to you, but you ended up with that particular concepts or theoretical principles, and you do not conduct a research by your own, you are not expert in research, because you didn't have any experience of conducting a research. That is why you are going to do research, so that you can experience everything about the research process, and that is research is empirical. And now, we will proceed with the second characteristic of research, which is logical. Research is based on valid procedures and principles. Scientific investigation is done in an orderly manner, so that researcher has the confidence in the results. This particular characteristic signifies that a researcher should be able to apply the inductive and deductive methods of data analysis. So when we say inductive method of data analysis, it is coming from the specific events, going to the generalization of what is happening to these particular activities or events, and that is from the specific to general. And deductive approach is talking about the breaking down the bigger ideas of a certain phenomenon or event, going to the small details of this particular event, so that the particular reader will be able to understand what is being emphasized by a certain researcher. Research is logical means that the data analysis is based from the valid procedures. So when we say valid procedures, the procedures are based from the factual evidences, meaning you didn't undergo the so-called the shortcut way of data gathering activities. You all undergo the systematic steps in gathering the data, so that the data that you are going to present is logical. Now, another example of this one is, for example, you are a senior high school student, and if you're going to make your research, be sure that your research must be logical. It means that the research that you're going to present will suit to your grade level or your age. If you're going to submit a research, upon assessment of your research, and your research is just only a product of the elementary pupil or grade 7 student, that is not logical. Meaning, you didn't apply your valid procedures in conducting a research. Valid procedures and principles are very important in conducting a research. It means that the research activities are personally done by you, and you didn't undergo the so-called shortcut of the data gathering activities, so that you can arrive a very good research outputs, and the investigation should be done in an orderly manner so that the researcher has the confidence in the results. Because if you just only manipulate the data, you are not confident to present your result because you didn't undergo the valid procedures. And that procedure is not confirmed by many people, because when we say valid, the procedures that you have undergone are being evidenced by the actual outputs or the actual activities that you have. And that is the meaning of logical. Okay, we will proceed with the number 3 characteristic of a research, which is cyclical. What is the meaning of this? Research is a cyclical process. It starts with a problem and ends with a problem. Hence, research is repeated. Research does not end with a certain problem, because this problem is a continuous process of investigation. Because if you are going to do a research, you start with a problem and ends with a problem, and that problem is a potential topic or idea of another researcher for him to conduct and resolve that particular issue. Because if there is no research, the principles and the ideas of our philosophers might be obsolete at this modern age of technology, particularly this rampant technologies. These ideas might be obsolete if there is no research. We are going to conduct research in order to recycle the old ideas. And when we say recycling of ideas, these old ideas are made to be suitable to the present scenario of the community. So that is why research is cyclical. It starts with a problem and ends with a problem, and it does not just only end with a problem, because the research does not just only end from the recommendation. From that recommendation, another problem is being recommended by a certain researcher, and that recommendation will create potential problem to other researchers. And that researcher is again creating a certain recommendation in order to resolve another issue. That is why research does not just end from the problem, because this problem is repeated and repeated. That is why research is repeated. And there is a saying that findings cannot be duplicated, but research can be replicated. What is the meaning of this? If you have a certain problem, you conducted a research from this specific problem, and after conducting this research, another researcher is conducting a research regarding that problem, the same problem. The findings of that research are so much different from your findings, although the topic or the problem is similar, but the findings are never duplicated. That is the meaning of research can be replicated anytime, but the findings are never duplicated. Now we will proceed with analytical. Research utilizes proven analytical procedures in gathering data, whether historical, descriptive, experimental, or any alternative research methods. It means that a researcher should be analytical enough in analyzing the data. The researcher should be able to answer the questions, the what, the how, of a certain phenomenon so that he can explain very well the data that he has gathered from the respondents. Analytical also means that a researcher is able to split down the bigger ideas into smaller parts so that he will be able to explain the small details of this particular problem, and the reader will be able to get the meaning of this particular data. And that is the meaning of analytical. And another one is from a small details of a certain phenomenon, a researcher should be analytical enough in creating a generalization or a bigger idea out of this specific or small details of the phenomenon. Therefore, from the logical and analytical, inductive approach and deductive approach are being applied in conducting a research. You are going to use the inductive approach, the deductive approach in presenting your data. That is talking about logical and analytical, because logical and analytical are very closely related to each other. But in analytical, the language here is very important because you cannot analyze a certain phenomenon if you do not know how to write a simple composition, because in analyzing a certain data, you are going to make cuento out of this computed data that you have, meaning you are going to use language, and the language that we are going to use in research is English, because this is the international language. That is why after our practical research 2, before our second quarter examination, for example, if we will be in the face-to-face classroom instruction, and after this pandemic, so I hope that you can present your research proposal, and I do not expect a very good research proposal from you because you are just only a senior high school students. At least you can experience doing a research by your own, because as what we have explained just a while ago, research is empirical. And if you're going to present your data must be presented logically, meaning the data that you have gathered should be based from the actual or formal arguments, meaning the data that you have gathered are valid. And this means that these data are very true. These are factual evidences of what is talking about the issues behind the problem that you have. Analyzing data utilizes the English language. That is why research is being offered in your grade 12, because you have already taken up all the English subjects, meaning you are equipped with the basic and advanced grammar points. That is why in the second semester, you are going to have the inquiries, investigations, and immersion, and all of the foundations that you have learned from your English subject teachers, from your Filipino subject teachers, will be used in analyzing your data that you have gathered, because you will be doing the actual conduct of the research, because you cannot present your research if you do not experience the research activities. Meaning, if you just only the shortcut of your data gathering activities, you are not doing your research logically. And how can you analyze the data that you have gathered critically if you didn't undergo the research process? That is why research is empirical, research is logical, research is cyclical. It means that the problem does not end with that of the specific recommendation of a researcher, because that recommendation will be another potential problem to be conducted by another researcher. That is why research is just only a recycling process of the old ideas, of the old concepts or theories, to make these theories, principles, concepts relatable to the modern society. Now we will proceed with the number 5 characteristic of quantitative research, which is replicable. Now, this quantitative research is different from the qualitative research because in qualitative research, you cannot replicate the research findings because you are conducting qualitative research in order to generate theory. Now, the findings of the qualitative research are just only potential problems for you to conduct quantitative research. The beauty of quantitative research, your findings or the problem can be replicated because quantitative research is just on recycling and recycling the old ideas to refine this particular idea to be relatable to the present scenario of the modern world. Okay, that is replicable. The research design and procedures are replicable or can be replicated to enable the researcher to arrive at valid and conclusive research. The word gas in research is not applicable because research can be replicated many times from different settings. But although two researchers are conducting, for example, the same problem or the same topic, they will arrive at different results. That is why quantitative research can be replicated. In qualitative research, just only minimal replication of the topic is done because if you're going to conduct qualitative research, you want to generate theory. If you're going to conduct quantitative research, you are going to refine or refresh the idea or you want to validate the theory. When you say validate, there is already an existing theory and you just only want to prove or disprove this particular theory. Take note, the more the researches are replicated, the more valid and conclusive the research would be. What you're going to do is to add flavor or to add variables or to refresh the title or the working title to make it crispy in the eyes of your teachers or to your advisors or to the readers because you just only replicate the research because quantitative research can be replicated many times, meaning researches of the previous students or the alumni of Esperanza National High School can be replicated by you, meaning you're going to continue or you're going to conduct again with additional flavor to their title and you might arrive at different results from their results. So that is why research is replicated. Now we will proceed with the last characteristic of research, which is critical. Quantitative research is critical. Research exhibits careful and precise judgment. A researcher must be critical in treating his hypothesis. Take note, in qualitative research, there is no hypothesis. When we say hypothesis, this is the bigger idea that you have. Meaning, you have already the previous assumption and this assumption is validated by many researchers and you start from that hypothesis and you want to prove this particular hypothesis, you are conducting a quantitative research. But not all quantitative researches have hypothesis. For example, if you have only the descriptive research, meaning you want to describe a certain phenomenon in which in that describing a certain phenomenon, you will apply statistical tools, but these statistical tools are not inferential, there is no hypothesis. But most of the times, our quantitative research has the hypothesis. Now, in treating our hypothesis, we are going to consider the levels of confidence. What is the meaning of this? Levels of confidence are 99% or 95%. Actually, there are three commonly employed levels of confidence. We have the 99%, we have the 95%, and we have the 93%. If the level of confidence is 99%, your margin of error or level of significance is 1%. If the level of confidence is 95%, your level of significance is 5%. It means that the margin of error is 5%. Take note, in statistics, error is tolerable, but a maximum of 5% only. That is why most of the researchers are using the so-called 95% level of confidence in treating the hypothesis. And another one, if we have the level of confidence which is 97%, our margin of error or level of significance is 3%. That is why if you are going to conduct quantitative research, a researcher must be very critical in treating his hypothesis, because if he will be wrong in treating the hypothesis, he rejected the null hypothesis, but he should supposedly accept the null hypothesis, he is going to arrive at an invalid conclusion. That is why a quantitative researcher must be critical enough in treating the hypothesis. Those are the characteristics of quantitative research. Now, we will proceed with the last topic of this video presentation, which is the 7 steps of the research process. As what we have discussed just a while ago, research is a systematic examination of a certain event or phenomenon. So when we say systematic, there are 7 scientific steps or procedures which are being undergone in order to arrive at a logical, analytical, and valid results. Step 3 should not come first before step 1. That is why this is step by step. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, 5, 6, and 7. Step 1 is defining and developing a problem or topic. And that is your working title. You start with a working title. Take note, that is not your title yet, because the research title will be final upon your final defense before the adjudicators or before the panelists or before your members of the examining committee of your research. So you start with a problem or topic. If you are curious about a certain phenomenon or event, and you can conceptualize a certain topic or problem out of this curiosity, and you can start with a working title, it means that as you go on, the title will be revised anytime. That is why that is a working title. Now, from this working title, if you have already the idea what will be the major topic that you're going to study, you are now proceeding with the step 2, which is finding background information about a chosen problem or topic, and that is review of related literature. So when we say literature, it is a concept, it is a principle, it is a topic, it is a study related to your working title. That is why review of related literature. When we say review, you are going to read and read and read and read and just only collect the related concepts, findings, or topics to your working title, and that will be very useful if you are going to write your background of the study about your problem. That is why if your professors say that research starts with review of related literature, that is correct. Why? Because you cannot have your problem or topic unless you have already the previous readings of what makes you curious about the particular event. So that is why research starts with a problem, and this problem cannot be obtained without reading and reading. So therefore, research starts with a problem, and that problem comes from reading and reading. Reading and reading is review of related literature. Then after conceptualizing your title and you have already written the background information about your title, working title, you are now to proceed with the step 3, which is the planning, a research design, and sample. We will be discussing about research design because this is talking about the blueprint of a research, and that is research design. And we will be discussing also the sample and sampling technique because this is very applicable in quantitative research, and this is all about methodology. Methodology talks about the systematic steps, the data gathering activities, the procedures that you have undergone during the process of the actual conduct of your research. And after you have already the research design, because we will be discussing this one, you are now going to proceed with gathering necessary data using specialized tools or instruments. You are going to use the tools if you are conducting qualitative research. And what are these specialized tools? Interview, and from that interview, you need the guide questions. And these are the specialized tools. And you have the survey questionnaire or checklist or paper pencil test through multiple choice in conducting a quantitative research. Because before you can be allowed to conduct the data gathering activities by your advisor or by the members of your panelists or your teacher in research, you are going to have your research instrument. And in quantitative research instrument are survey questionnaire. And you will be taught how to make your research instrument based from the variables of your research. Okay. Because you cannot proceed with the data gathering activities without your instrument. How can you gather your data without instrument? And this is data gathering activities. Now, for your practical research too, you will end up to this particular step. Meaning, you are going to just only produce a research proposal. Research proposal is composed of chapter 1. Chapter 1 is talking about the background information about your research. Chapter 2 is the related readings of your research, and that is review of related literature. Chapter 3 is the methodology, including, of course, your instrument. And after that, what will be your proposal? How are you going to gather your data using your research instrument? Until here, only for your practical research too. Because in the second semester, if you're going to take up inquiries, investigations, and immersion, you are going to undergo the 3 other steps. Meaning, if your research instruments are ready for distribution to the respondents, take note, you're going to use respondents for quantitative research, participants for qualitative research. You are now going to present, analyze, and interpret your data. Now, presentation of data without analysis and interpretation is nothing, because nobody can understand your data if you do not analyze and interpret. So if you're going to analyze, you are specifying or you are mentioning your statistical data there. And if you are going to further explain the meaning of this data that you have, and that is already interpretation of data. Okay, then after that, you are going to formulate new insights for qualitative research and conclusions for quantitative research. Take note, why new insights? Because if you're going to conduct qualitative research, you want to generate theory. Meaning, the theory is not yet existing, but you want to generate theory in conducting a qualitative research. Okay, if you want to conduct quantitative research, there is already an existing theory. Meaning, you have already in your mind what will be the possible result of your study. Okay, and you just only validate that specific theory. That is why you're going to have the conclusions. And after that, you are going to have the defining of a new problem. A new problem can be found in your recommendations. And if you have your recommendations already, that ends the research process. But before final output of your research will be accepted, there are attachments to be included. Okay, and we will be talking about the parts of the research proposal as well as the parts of the final research output in the coming days, in the coming weeks. Okay, now, before I'm going to give you your assignment to be submitted online, I just want to remind you that you are really required to answer all the AC questions, meaning I will not remind you from time to time to answer all the AC questions in paragraph forms. Because if you are doing a research, you are always writing paragraphs. That is why you are going to acquaint yourselves in writing a paragraph. That is why quantitative research and inquiries, investigations, and immersion are offered in your grade 12 because you have already taken up several English subjects that you have. Meaning, you have acquired the writing skills and eventually you can write your own researches. You are expected to have your full competence in basic writing composition following the correct grammar, particularly the subject-verb agreement. Now, then take note, I am going to give you the sample answer of an essay question in paragraph form, and this is in the next slide. For instance, the essay question is like this one. Why do we need to consider ethical standards in conducting a research? Take note, this is a paragraph form. You're going to press the tab of your computer, or if you're going to write your answer in handwritten form, you are going to always follow this paragraph form. Now, we can review the ethical standards in conducting a research. Following ethical standards in conducting research is very important because our credibility might be ruined if we are going to have the shortcut of the data gathering activities. It means that you didn't undergo the research process, but you just manipulate the data, and manipulation of data is a violation of the research conduct. Now, what are the three research misconduct? We have the plagiarism, we have the falsification of the data, and we have also the manipulation of your data. Now, if you are doing these particular three things, you are violating the ethical standards. And aside from that, following ethical standards is very important because this will serve as your guides in conducting a research. So that's how important the ethical standards in conducting a research. So this is just only a sample answer to the essay question. Answering the essay questions that you have in your assignment will make you acquainted of writing a simple composition or paragraph. This is your assignment. Answer the following questions in paragraph form. Number one, how important are the inquiry, investigation, and immersion in doing an actual research? Number two, define research. What is its importance in improving people's lives? We have already defined research. Make your own definition. You are going to paraphrase the definition that I have presented to you. Do not copy from period to period. No? Because copying from period to period is a form of intellectual piracy, or that is a violation of the research conduct. No? So you're going to explain the importance in improving people's lives. You're going to Answer it in paragraph 4. Number 3, expound this statement. Research starts with a problem and ends with a problem. Number 4, explain in details the steps in conducting a research. We have the 7 steps in conducting a research. Do not answer it in enumeration form. Answer it in paragraph form. You're going to explain. Because in research, you are not going to enumerate the story about the phenomenon, but you are going to explain in details. That is why this is a preparatory training for you, answering the essay questions. Okay, number 5. Give 2 characteristics of research and explain each. So there are 6 characteristics of quantitative research and give only 2. Select among the 6 and explain each. Give further explanation or example, no? Then, you are going to submit it in my email address, samsudinabdullah42 at yahoo.com. You're going to take a clear picture of your answer and you're going to submit it in my email address. Or if you don't have the email address, you can send me your answer in my Facebook account, Samsudin and Abdullah. So that ends our first video presentation for this new normal class for the school year 2020-2021. I hope you are all fine and look away in order to watch this particular video because we are in a distance learning. And I am very glad that you chose online modality because in online, the teacher is going to comprehensively explain the lesson. Unlike with modular, students are given modules and they are the ones to read the modules themselves and explain. The teacher is not going to explain that because they are in different places. But in online, you have the chance to watch the video in your convenient time and you will learn from that. So, that's all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.